buenos días. O buenos días, por favor, si me dan la línea. Estoy un poco parado aquí.
¿Todo bien, Iván?
Sí, ¿empiezo o a quién toca primero? Porque estoy desorientado en ese tema.
No se preocupe, Iván. Tenemos a nuestra moderadora Alida Pam presentando y ella le dará indicaciones cuando sea su turno.
Perfecto, muchas
Gracias.
gracias. Sí, me vas a apoyar aquí.
Por lo mientras lo vamos a silenciar. Gracias.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of the three sessions of our SIWI seminar, Purposeful Communications and Advocacy. Today, we are here to talk to you about the psychology and adoption of behavior change. We thank you so much for joining. I see that there are about 60 participants joining us today. We're really going to be discussing kind of the latest research on behavior change, including the role of social norms, habit formation, but also the use of incentives and feedback. And you will hear from some of very interesting case studies of successful and innovative initiatives from around the world and campaigns focused on water conservation and what has really worked in engaging water users to work more collaboratively. So first of all, I also wanted to really encourage everyone to ask any questions that you may have in the chat that we will be actively monitoring. We also really want to know, and that's something that you can do at the end of our session, but it's something maybe during the session that you also will be able to think about, is the one maybe challenging or exciting seed of change for today's world of water crises that really stood out from this session that you're attending today as part of the World Water Week. So please also fill out and we'll share it in the chat. It's a Google Doc form, so if you would please share with us at the end also what stood out for you. That's something that we would really appreciate and also be able to take forward in our recommendations to the SIWI organizers. There will be one presentation also today that will be given in Spanish. So if you then go to the bottom of your screen and click on the three dots that says more, and I think by now most of you will already have tried this before, but you can click on the interpretation button that will then show either English or Spanish. And now I would like to also just tell you that you will need your phone with you. We'll be starting very soon with a little icebreaker just to get to know who's around the table and who's around our virtual room today, starting with Eliana Harrigan from OneWater, who will take you through this very mini icebreaker. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ali, for the introductions. Yes, so as she said, we will begin with an icebreaker. So I'd like to kindly ask everyone to scan the code, the QR code on the screen, or go on the website down below. I will put the website link in the chat also for your convenience. So I will stop sharing my screen quickly. Erica, can we go to Poeve, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We're getting all the answers right away. Please remember to scan this little QR code right here and answer your questions, please.
Okay, so we start with what may seem to be a totally irrelevant question, but it is relevant to behavior change. So the first question is, do you know that you should floss your teeth every day? It seems that we have very dentally conscientious people here, as you've all said yes. So I now would like to go to the next question, please. So we all know that we should floss our teeth every day. How often do you floss your teeth? And again, this is all anonymous, so feel free to be honest. Okay. It's fluctuating, but as we can see, even though we all knew that we should floss our teeth at least once a day, not all of us do it. So clearly there is a gap in between knowledge and action. Next slide, please. And again, this is anonymous, so answer as you wish. Have you ever lied to your dentist about how much you floss? (50-50), more or less. So this indicates how sometimes when there is maybe social pressure to do something, our answers change, our perspectives towards the action and the knowledge that we have change. Can we go to the next slide, please? Dentists will always know. I love that in the chat. They will. Okay, so now making it a bit more environmentally relevant. Did you know that single-use plastics are bad for the environment? Yes, mainly yeses here. So can we go to the next question, please? So have you used any single-use plastics in the past 2 weeks? So again, a disconnect in between what we know and what we do. Next slide, please, Erica. So to those who answered yes to both questions, so yes, you did know that single-use plastics are bad for the environment, but yes, you have also used them in the past 2 weeks. Why did you do so? Because it was convenient, because it was the only option, for health reasons, for instance, an injection, or other? Okay, so the results are still fluctuating, but I would say they're kind of representative of the overall answer. And what we can learn from this is that there are many, many, many reasons why knowledge and information does not necessarily equal action. So how do we break down these different reasons, and how do we then induce real positive transformative behavior change? And now it is over to my colleague Friso.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for having me in this session. I will give a little bit of a, let's say, a company perspective on the subject of purposeful communications. So let me start with who we are, then leading into why we communicate and how we communicate. The company Waven is a water infrastructure and technology company. So we produce products where basically water flows through, runs through. So we're basically at the hardware component of the water sector. We are part of a company called Orbia, which has a strong purpose to advance life around the world. And one of the things of our core values is also about being brave. That is reflected in how we communicate to. Our purpose drivers, mainly about water, are on safe and efficient water supplies, on the drinking water side, on the sanitation side, so the sewer side, on climate resilient cities, and on the building better building performance. That's who we are. And the reason why, and why I'm also happy to be in this session, is there is a reason why we communicate, why we actively put effort and money in. You could call it marketing, but I would rather call it communication. We have teams across the globe that on a daily basis work with clients in projects, discussing better solutions for water. And to us, as experts, as people inside our company, in our Orbia company, water is essential. And I think that goes for the whole audience. That's nothing to really discuss. But once you start to step into projects, real projects, and day-to-day reality of the water industry, you basically see that water is undervalued. There is an economical side to things. So the reason to invest usually is related also to the economics of water, which is problematic, to say it mildly, but also on the, let's say, the more spiritual side of things. So do we really value water? Do we really understand the true essence of water for our human being, for our cities, for our communities? If you look at the default of the projects and all the interactions we're in, basically the default is water is waste. So it is at the end of the value chain of how we design buildings, industrial plants, neighborhoods. Or water is seen as a problem, something maybe to solve, but not to put in the forefront of a project or an instrument. The question is how to make a change, and this is really vital also for our company. It's our reason of being, to be able to transfer that message on why water is essential. And I've been giving this a lot of thought. Also discusses, for instance, with my colleague Jan, who's here in the room in the session. In essence, to me, and I think that's also one of the big themes at this water conference, there is a big, let's say, push on regulation and financing. Those two are the drivers of all our projects in the water industry. There is either legislation forcing us to do something, or it should be combined with the right investments. Our water industry is highly political in that sense. It is connected to how we make decisions in our countries, in our industries. And the question is, how do you change politics? And in the end, politics follows the people's mindset. So that's why it is so relevant for us to reach all the actors in the realm of water, to change their people's mindset, to be able to change politics, to be able to change legislation, and get the right financing in place. So it's a little bit of an abstract story, but it condensates in how we actually communicate. So what's our message? And maybe not necessarily on our message, what are the key components of that message? First of all, we tell a story about water circularity, and we like to do it playfully. Hence a toilet that is also your water hose for irrigation. Trying to open people's mind that water is not just one thing, it is way more, and it speaks to people's mind. What we also see a lot in communication on water, and that comes from the paradigm that water is a problem, that you see a lot of negative, dark clouds, dark pictures. And that's what we try also to change with more optimistic visualizations, with a strong message. If it starts to rain, it's not about putting up your umbrella, but about thinking how we can catch that water, but bringing it with a little bit more of a flavor, a little bit more sunshine in the back, as you can see in highlighting the trees there. But it's also talking to engineers who are basically trained over years to work with a building code, with a civil engineering code that tells us to, think linear. You have your project, you bring drinking water in and sewer water out. It might be groundwater bringing in, discharge out. Thinking more circular, it also needs new language. So what we try to do to define and collaboratively define our new languages to talk about this subject. So we choose the 5 C's, about thinking about catching. Where and how can we catch different types of water? Where and how can we collect it? What type of connections do we need? Not following the building code, but following a line of thinking about thinking circular. And then it's about the question, what to clean? What is the quality of the water? Rainwater is pretty clean. Groundwater is probably pretty clean. Surface water might need different steps of cleaning. And then at the end, bringing control. That's one of the big themes in Marvin. We definitely believe more in censoring, understanding, knowing, building data, building the ability to adjust scenarios. So bringing these 5 C's gives us a language to talk to people in the industry that they can understand, and that we also can tie into different, let's say, practical product ranges. And it's also about changing a mindset and trying to understand, broaden people's scope. Usually when we're in a project, people only think one way, but by presenting them options and telling them also it's not rocket science. In a lot of our presentations is the line, it's not rocket science. It's not that complicated. Water is pretty simple. Let's start doing so. So that's, I mean, I can talk for hours, but this is in essence a couple of the lines of thinking we have about bringing a different message and an optimistic message. And we have recently launched a video in which we try to reach a really wide audience online to show how you can see water differently. And I will only share a short clip. Also, a matter of time, you can find the clip online. See water differently. Google it, and you will get there. So the whole clip is 2 minutes, and I encourage you to check it online, and we'll drop the link in the chat. Our joint mission, and that's also why I'm really happy to join today, is I think it's really about changing people's mindset, giving them new languages, new images, new pictures to believe in, a new purpose maybe. I believe in the end, if we have this crowd of people that really believe in something, that will change politics, and that in the end will fundamentally change the way we build our legislation around water and the way we finance our projects, and maybe also the amount of money we put into water. That was my small contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Friso. That was, I think, really nice to kind of see how we can see water differently, and how I think also with, you know, in the urban setting, how this is being done by Vavin. And, you know, I think we can learn a lot from you and from your team. And I really encourage people also to get in touch, and to also put some of the questions that they may have in the chats. Our next speaker is Maria Lucia Flores Jimenez, and she's the Planning Corporate Manager for Acueducto, the Bogota water utility in Colombia. Maria Lucia, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Lida. So, 1 second, I'm just going to share the presentation here. 1 second. So, hello everyone. In this presentation, we'll be showcasing the main outcomes of a study conducted at the Water and Sanitation Company of Bogota, the capital city of Colombia. The study is titled Direct Messages for Water Conservation, a randomized study in Bogota. So at the company, we have been looking for cost-effective mechanisms that will increase water conservation awareness. Oh, sorry, just a second. Yes, water conservation awareness. That's why we found enticing the idea of assessing the impact of building communication on water consumption behavior. How did we do it? Through the billing statement, we sent either a congratulatory message or an alert one. The research follows a control experiment design, what means that within the selected population, we randomly assign recipients for these messages. The experimental setup ensures that we are confident in the causal effects observed, and that, in other words, even if we don't delve into the exact reasons behind the communication's efficacy, we know that the results provide a true impact of the instrument. Here you can see the billing statement and the messages, which appear at the top. The congratulatory message is highlighted in green, accompanied by a sentence stating that the user is contributing to water conservation. The alert message is highlighted in red, with a sentence stating that water conservation relies on the user's help, along with some brief recommendation to reduce consumption. Our study unit was households, but the first level of randomization was done at the gated community level. So gated communities are mostly buildings with shared management and clearly defined boundaries that define them away from other gated communities. Let's give a further glimpse into what was done by the book strategy. We selected a sample that represented roughly 10% of our users' universe. So we have more than 2 million users. We selected more than 2,000 households that were comprised in more than 2,000 gated communities. The area selected are shown in the map in the right side. So these gated communities were randomly assigned to one of the following two types of groups. The first group was the one that was comprised by gated communities where some households were going to receive the message and the remaining were not, as it was the first group. And the second group were those gated communities where no household was going to receive the message. In the first group, so why do we have both the households that were receiving and not receiving the message? Because we wanted to have both the strict treatment group and also an impure control group, through which one we could taste for spillover effects. So we're going to talk about that a bit later. The second group then was the one that was encompassed a clean control group. So remember, the second group were those that didn't receive any message. Now, once we defined what household was going to receive a message, how did we determine what kind of message it was going to receive? So we defined neighbors as households within the same gated community. Hence, the alert or congratulatory message depended on the community's average. That is, each gated community had its own threshold. But there are several studies conducting similar experiments with utility bills. To our knowledge, none has measured as many thresholds as we have. So this was possible for us due to the well-defined boundaries of the gated communities. This not only allowed us to determine whether the message had an impact or not, but also under what user circumstances or characteristics the message might be effective or may be more, so to speak, communicative. Now, let's delve into the results. So we have 5 main results. The first point to note is the presence of spillover effects. This means that when the experiment works, it affects the entire gated community, even if not all individuals receive the message directly. The second result is that the message is particularly effective for users with high consumption patterns. As shown in the graph, users with high consumption who receive the alert message decrease their consumption. The graph illustrates that the higher the consumption, the more likely a reduction will occur. If consumption is below 24 cubic meters, there isn't a statistically significant reduction, but above that, it is significant the more consumption, baseline consumption the households have. Third result, the message also led to consumption reduction for users from higher socioeconomic backgrounds, regardless of the consumption levels. Fourth, we found that the message caused a decrease in consumption for users who, regardless of the consumption, only slightly exceeded the average consumption within their gated community. These individuals likely believe it's easy to catch up to their neighbors. That's what we most likely believe is happening. And the fifth result is that we discovered that the reduction in consumption continues into the subsequent billing periods, only for those who receive the message for the second time. So we test also, there was a second part of the experiment where we sent a message for a part of the initially selected households, and we did it for another part to test how important was it to keep communicating. So what are the implications of the results that we just named? First implication, spillover effects indicate that a consumption comparison communication aimed at reducing water usage doesn't need to be sent to every user. We can attain the desired effect by reaching only a portion of the users. Second implication, we believe this result is extraordinary, as we have shown that it is possible to reduce water consumption using a strategy that by construction is cost-free. Why is it cost-free? Because we anyways have to send the water bills every 2 months to the users, and we had no impediment to include just the message that you just saw in previous slides. Third implication, were we to extend the results to the broader population, we could estimate a consumption reduction by over 60,000 cubic meters, 600,000 cubic meters every 2 months. So this is basically equivalent to the consumption of more than 160,000 people each month. So this is important given the strategy that we conducted. Fourth implication, the heterogeneous treatment effects show that wealthy households and high users of water decrease water use. So this is policy-wise relevant, because what the rationale for subsidies is to benefit the poor. We are seeing here that wealthy groups are more responsive to this kind of initiatives. And fifth, the fact that the message's effect only persists in those who receive it for the second time implies that communication must be continuous. Sustained water consumption reduction over time, triggered by this kind of a strategy, is only significant when we are consistent in the support and the communication. So people needs to be reminded constantly. Sixth implication, these findings are not only consistent with the notion that direct communication about water consumption can influence decisions, but also demonstrates that potential for non-pecuniary incentives are an important mechanism to motivate a smart water use. So what we're saying is, like, it's important for people to internalize the benefits of having this reduction, but those benefits are not only economic. We can have other type of benefits. People can associate other type of benefits, like recognition, feeling well with environment, and peer support, for instance. And just one important thought. As we have seen, this experiment is not telling us about the mechanism through which consumption reduction is generated. We know that the instrument of sending a message through the bill works, but we don't know exactly why. But we also can go further into this research to understand what is the underlying mechanism. It can be users' environmental preference, it can be social approval, it can be just competition. But what we're seeing here is that the instrument is working, and this is quite powerful by itself. So we believe that if this reduction in power consumption, in water consumption, is achievable through this simple and cost-free strategy, more aggressive strategies, both in form and substance, might yield even more potent results. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm open to any questions the board or the audience may have.
Thank you so much, Maria Lucia. I see already there are quite a few questions actually in the chat, so maybe you can address some of them before we move over to the Q&A part of this session. While I give the floor to Ivan Albis. He's the General Director for SENASBA in Bolivia, and this is the section where you would need to, if you do not also speak Spanish or understand Spanish, you can also use the interpretation button here. Dr. Ivan has more than 30 years of experience in the environmental and water sector, and is currently the General Director of the National Service for the Sustainability of Basic Sanitation. Ivan.
Buenas tardes, si me permiten compartir, por favor. Ahí estamos bien, ¿se ve la presentación?
Sí.
Muy buenas tardes, desde La Paz, Bolivia. Tengo el privilegio de poder compartir algunas experiencias en el tema de movilización comunitaria para los proyectos sostenibles de agua y saneamiento en Bolivia. Primeramente, quiero indicar de que el Servicio Nacional para la Sostenibilidad de Servicios de Saneamiento Básico es una institución descentralizada bajo tuición del Ministerio de Medio Ambiente y Agua. Ha sido creada el 15 de octubre del 2008. Tenemos la misión de constituir una entidad pública de desarrollo de capacidades de las entidades prestadoras de servicios de agua potable y alcantarillado sanitario, que los denominamos de un nombre genérico EPSA, ¿no? A estas hay que fortalecerles mediante la asistencia técnica, el fortalecimiento institucional del sector, y esto es a nivel nacional. Tenemos la visión de que al 2025 podamos nosotros consolidarnos como una institución especializada en macroprocesos asociados a la prestación de los servicios para fortalecer a las entidades del sector para la sostenibilidad de los servicios de agua y saneamiento básico en beneficio de los usuarios. Los objetivos de la entidad es, en un primer objetivo, fortalecer la capacidad de gestión de los operadores de los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento a través de la asistencia técnica y fortalecimiento institucional para prestar servicios eficientes con enfoque de calidad. El segundo objetivo importante es el de implementar la estrategia social denominada Desarrollo Comunitario o DESCON, como generalmente se lo conoce, como un proceso fundamental para la sostenibilidad de los servicios en saneamiento básico y preservación del medio ambiente. Asimismo, un tercer objetivo de la entidad es promover el desarrollo institucional de las EPSAs a través de la difusión de conocimientos y transferencia de tecnologías apropiadas e innovadoras al sector de agua y saneamiento básico en el país. El desarrollo comunitario en el sector de agua potable y saneamiento está institucionalizado en Bolivia. Es la estrategia social que sienta las bases de la sostenibilidad, donde todos los programas y proyectos de agua potable y saneamiento incorpora el desarrollo comunitario. Es decir, de que todos los proyectos que se aprueban para la ejecución de obras de agua potable y saneamiento tienen el componente de desarrollo comunitario incluido. En este sentido, la estrategia social de desarrollo comunitario constituye un conjunto de acciones planificadas sistemáticamente en el tiempo y basadas en principios. Tiene un marco de referencia, rutas fundamentales que orientan el proceso, permitiendo la evaluación, el análisis y comparación del desempeño de un proyecto en términos de eficiencia, eficacia y congruencia. Las mismas están centradas en la participación activa de la comunidad en todo el ciclo del proyecto. A través de las guías de desarrollo comunitario, que ha sido ya puesta en vigencia el año 2008, se ha instrumentalizado su aplicación y se dio un salto cualitativo en el modelo de intervención social de los proyectos de agua potable y saneamiento, pasando de una concepción de acompañamiento a la gestión del saneamiento básico local, en la que la participación de los y las ciudadanas pasa de un papel pasivo a un rol activo, convirtiéndose en sujetos de su propio desarrollo, donde los usuarios de agua potable y saneamiento están involucrados para trabajar en colaboración desde la concepción del proyecto hasta la fase postproyecto. El ciclo de desarrollo comunitario implementado y que está basado ya en toda la experiencia aplicada en Bolivia es de 1, la promoción y difusión, el 2, la planificación municipal, 3, la preinversión, que es la etapa donde se va construyendo los proyectos de agua y saneamiento, 4, la inversión, donde ya básicamente el proyecto está construido, y ahí viene la parte de consolidación del DESCOM. Todo este proceso, bueno, siempre está acompañado por un monitoreo y evaluación, ¿no? Un monitoreo y evaluación donde, finalizada la parte de inversión de obras, obviamente la entidad prestadora de servicios ya está en la capacidad de poder administrar, operar y mantener el servicio de agua potable o de saneamiento. Pero no queda ahí, sino que también en el ciclo del DESCON se implementa una fase de postproyecto, es decir, de que tenemos que hacer el seguimiento a toda la inversión y a todo el trabajo realizado de una vez terminado el proyecto, y obviamente esto todavía es para nosotros algo que por falta de recursos a veces no lo podemos ejecutar. Tenemos la gran experiencia de los programas Mi Agua, ¿no? Donde básicamente nos hemos centrado en 2 fases en los programas Mi Agua en Bolivia, en la fase de inversión, que básicamente es la etapa donde se va construyendo los proyectos de agua potable y saneamiento, donde hay una intervención para la ejecución del desarrollo comunitario y fortalecimiento institucional durante toda la fase de ejecución de obras. A este proceso de desarrollo comunitario existe una supervisión y capacitación en temas que hacen al desarrollo comunitario. Realmente es una fase muy importante porque es donde se sientan las bases de una buena administración, operación y mantenimiento de los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento. Una vez terminada la obra, pasamos a la fase de postinversión, donde básicamente se va institucionalizando ya el fortalecimiento. Se le da más asistencia técnica, se aplican medidas de efecto inmediato, es decir, de dar solución a problemas puntuales con soluciones puntuales también. Existen varios actores en este proceso. Básicamente, el beneficiario, digamos, es la comunidad, pero es representado por su gobierno autónomo municipal, que ellos tienen un fiscal que hacen justamente el seguimiento a la ejecución de obras y a la supervisión de obras. El FPS que participa en estos proyectos Miagua es una entidad ejecutora de obras, ¿no? Que a través de su fiscal lo mismo interviene en la ejecución de obras, contratando a la empresa constructora y en la supervisión de obras también. Paralelamente a esto, existe la parte de la ejecución del desarrollo comunitario en la fase de inversión, porque estamos hablando ahorita de la fase de inversión, donde están construyendo las obras, se está supervisando la obra y se está ejecutando el desarrollo comunitario con o bajo la intervención del Servicio Nacional para la Sostenibilidad y Saneamiento Básico como supervisor de todo este proceso. Además de supervisar, además realizamos toda la capacitación en función a las guías que ya están determinadas para la ejecución del desarrollo comunitario. Esta fase de inversión concluye básicamente con la fase de inversión de obras. Y pasamos a una fase de postinversión, donde básicamente el SENASBA es la que trabaja juntamente con el gobierno municipal con la asistencia técnica y fortalecimiento institucional a las EPSAs, a las entidades que prestan los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento. Les brindamos asistencia técnica, les brindamos fortalecimiento institucional y les brindamos siempre la implementación de medidas de efecto inmediato, que es solucionar los problemas puntuales con soluciones puntuales e inmediatas. Todo esto ejecutado bajo un convenio con los gobiernos autónomos municipales. Es decir, que al gobierno municipal queremos que sea el actor principal en todo este proceso, porque al fin y al cabo es la entidad que permanece en la región. Para la implementación de la fase de inversión y postinversión, básicamente en este esquema podemos ver que una vez ejecutada la fase de inversión, viene la ejecución del DESCON y fortalecimiento institucional bajo la supervisión del DESCON también, y obviamente terminadas las obras hay un proceso más o menos que decimos nosotros la autogestión de la EPSA, es decir, un proceso, un tiempo donde la EPSA camina o funciona de manera independiente y sola. Generalmente le hemos dado entre 3 y 6 meses esta autogestión antes de entrar precisamente a lo que es la fase postinversión. En la fase postinversión lo que hacemos es, en primer lugar, todo con participación activa de los miembros del directorio de la EPSA y también con participación del gobierno autónomo municipal. Realizamos un diagnóstico integral participativo. Es decir, nuestros consultores que nosotros contratamos van a trabajar directamente con un técnico municipal y con los miembros que administran los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento. Se hace un diagnóstico en diferentes áreas, en la gestión técnica de agua potable, en la gestión de saneamiento, en la gestión comercial, administrativa, financiera, en la gestión de planificación y la gestión social y participación. Este diagnóstico nos permite elaborar un plan de fortalecimiento institucional, de asistencia técnica e implementación de medidas de efecto inmediato, que posteriormente al plan obviamente se tiene que aplicar ya en campo e implementar todas las actividades programadas y planificadas. Este proceso dura más o menos unos 6 meses en promedio, dependiendo el nivel de estado en que se encuentra la EPSA en el tema de administración, operación y mantenimiento de los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento. El trabajo operativo lo realizamos primero como SENASBA en la ejecución de la postinversión. Nosotros supervisamos, asesoramos, capacitamos. Contratamos a consultores especialistas en el área técnica y consultores especialistas en la parte que lo hemos denominado gestión de EPSA al área administrativa, financiera, comercial y de planificación. Que básicamente estos nuestros consultores intervienen directamente en la comunidad en un promedio de 6 comunidades, ¿no? Perdón, de 6 comunidades, porque básicamente también el trabajo tiene que ser un poco pausado. Las comunidades se saturan un poco con la intervención permanente, digamos, y por eso es de que armamos paquetes de 6 comunidades en promedio, donde el consultor va trabajando semana a semana en estas comunidades en un periodo de 6 meses aproximadamente. Todo con participación activa de las EPSAs y el técnico del gobierno autónomo municipal. Esa es un poco la clave, digamos, de la intervención, de que debe ser realmente participativa. En el diagnóstico, a través de una herramienta establecida, de una encuesta, hacemos que lo aplicamos directamente a los miembros de las EPSAs, a los directorios, ¿no? Donde ellos nos transmiten toda la información del estado de situación, de cómo se encuentran en las diferentes áreas. Obviamente, para la parte técnica se hace una inspección in situ, o sea, desde la obra de toma, desde la fuente de agua, hasta la última pileta que constituye el sistema que abastece agua en una comunidad. Esto realmente debe ser participativo, con acción directa de los miembros de la EPSA y el trabajo conjunto entre nuestros consultores, el SENASBA y obviamente la comunidad. Se formula el plan, obviamente, a corto, mediano y largo plazo. Hay un plan que se elabora a corto plazo, las actividades inmediatas que hay que hacer para remediar situaciones así muy simples y de no mucha complejidad, digamos. A mediano plazo, aquellas que podemos ejecutar de aquí a un cierto tiempo, más o menos entre el 1 y 2 años siguientes que vienen, y a largo plazo son aquellas que más o menos lo tendrían que ejecutar de aquí a 2 años en adelante. Entonces, esos tiempos básicamente son relativos, son referenciales, porque cada EPSA es individualizada y cada EPSA tiene su propia característica y su estado de situación, de manera de que realmente determinarán sus acciones a corto plazo, cuáles van a ser a mediano y largo plazo. Esto se trabaja directamente con la participación de las EPSAs, de los directorios que están administrando los servicios. Una vez hecho el diagnóstico, los planes elaborados de asistencia técnica, fortalecimiento institucional y la implementación de medidas de efecto inmediato se aplican en el área técnica, en el área de fortalecimiento y en el tema de asistencia técnica, para ver, de coadyuvar, digamos, y ver una EPSA consolidada en la gestión de los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento. Al margen de ello, que se trabaja en conformar alianzas estratégicas. Es decir, tratamos de que realmente el gobierno autónomo municipal sea parte de controlar, monitorear, hacer seguimiento a una EPSA, ¿no? Porque realmente el gobierno municipal es la entidad que está permanente y que debe velar por la prestación de servicios en la jurisdicción municipal. Entonces, la EPSA debe estar vinculada a su gobierno municipal. También hacemos alianzas estratégicas entre la EPSA, que es la entidad prestadora de servicios, con el sector salud. El sector salud se convierte aquí como un fiscal, como alguien que tiene que velar de que el agua que se distribuye en la comunidad o en la población realmente sea salubre, sea desinfectada y tenga las condiciones básicas para que sea realmente agua potable. También vinculamos con el sector educación, es decir, que los profesores o la gente que trabaja en educación sea parte de un proceso de educación ambiental en todo esto, con la participación activa de la EPSA para llegar a toda la comunidad. Entonces es importante que una EPSA de una comunidad, de una ciudad intermedia, esté vinculada directamente a su gobierno autónomo municipal, al sector de salud y al sector de educación. Asimismo, trabajamos en conformar alianzas de hermanamiento entre EPSAs. Es decir, de que entre EPSAs, si la EPSA 1 tiene capacidades en X o Y actividades o procesos, puede fortalecer a una EPSA, que es su vecina, que está muy cerca de ellos, y obviamente lo que la EPSA 2 conoce, sabe hacer mejor, puede fortalecer a la EPSA 1. Entonces queremos llegar a una hermandad entre EPSAs para que se puedan apoyar mutuamente cuando, digamos, el apoyo externo ya ha terminado. Pero también existen estas alianzas entre EPSAs de diferente tamaño, de diferente capacidad. Una EPSA mayor que está en una capital municipal, digamos, puede fortalecer y apoyar a la EPSA 1, 2, 3, 4, de manera de que realmente haya un vínculo entre EPSAs, de que las que tienen mayor capacidad puedan fortalecer en temas que requieren las EPSAs menores. Entonces, esta es una tarea que estamos promoviendo y nos está dando buen resultado. Como resultados fundamentales del proceso de la gestión social o desarrollo comunitario es la participación activa de la EPSA. Es decir, la EPSA debe participar, y si esta participa, realmente tenemos buenos resultados. Tenemos resultados en calidad de agua, que los sistemas de desinfección estén funcionando. Y al funcionar, obviamente, se tiene que hacer el control de calidad de agua para consumo humano. Eso es importante porque, obviamente, el abastecimiento tiene que ser de agua potable. También como resultado tenemos una estructura tarifaria y tarifas consolidadas, es decir, hay que revisar la tarifa, actualizar si es necesario y determinar una tarifa, que no siempre a veces es la tarifa calculada, sino que es una tarifa social que se llama, y que en reunión las comunidades aprueban realmente el monto de la tarifa que van a cancelar. Pero este monto realmente, si está aprobado, debe ser su pago, debe ser de forma mensual, a veces es semestral o a veces anual, según las condiciones económicas de la comunidad. También se tiene como un resultado la implementación de planes de educación sanitaria y ambiental. Y acompañado de esto, también los planes de resiliencia comunitaria, donde obviamente las comunidades tienen que saber cómo hacer frente a algunas adversidades que puede pasar en su sistema de agua potable o de saneamiento. También como un resultado podemos manifestar de que se tiene que tener y entregamos manuales de operación y mantenimiento del sistema de agua potable y sistema de alcantarillado sanitario contextualizados a cada EPSA, es decir, cada proyecto es un mundo, cada proyecto es una particularidad, entonces sus manuales tienen que estar realmente contextualizados al tipo de sistema que tiene y al tipo de saneamiento que esté implementado en la comunidad. Realizamos también encuestas de satisfacción donde obviamente captamos la percepción del cambio que hay en las comunidades cuando no tienen un sistema de agua y posteriormente cuando ya disponen de este líquido elemento y de saneamiento. Entonces, ver la diferencia que existe cuando no hay y existe, y la percepción del usuario es importante tomar en cuenta en todo esto. Algo que es importante es de que el gobierno autónomo municipal debe delegar a la EPSA la responsabilidad de la administración, operación y mantenimiento del sistema de agua potable o del sistema de alcantarillado y planta de tratamiento de aguas residuales. Es decir, de que este es un documento legal donde el gobierno municipal, al transferir esta responsabilidad a los beneficiarios y a su EPSA, obviamente estamos haciendo de que la EPSA pueda asumir toda la responsabilidad de esta tarea y no estar todo el tiempo reclamando a su gobierno municipal. Todavía en esto estamos avanzando, es algo que no siempre se está dando porque a veces los gobiernos autónomos municipales no siempre quieren delegar las responsabilidades para no tener problemas sociales por el tema político. Y muchas EPSAs, cuando ven que el proyecto, ya sea de alcantarillado y principalmente plantas de tratamiento, es más complicado la operación y mantenimiento, no quieren recibir esta obra como parte de toda esta delegación, sino dejar nomás que el gobierno municipal lo siga administrando para que pueda apoyar en el tema de costos para la operación y mantenimiento. Pero para todo esto es importante la firma de convenios con los gobiernos municipales para que ellos puedan realmente apoyar en todo este proceso. Es la entidad permanente en la región, ellos deben ser parte de todo este proceso para hacer el seguimiento y control a las EPSAs que realmente están bajo la jurisdicción municipal. Se hace un monitoreo al avance de resultados en la fase de implementación de los planes de asistencia técnica, fortalecimiento institucional y medidas de efecto inmediato. Analizamos la evaluación del estado de situación de las EPSAs y para el cierre correspondiente en el sistema de información. Y luego viene un cierre de un programa donde básicamente ya están establecidos todos los indicadores y todo lo que compete a los objetivos del programa para que esto se tenga como una base de datos para un futuro próximo. Pero al margen de intervenir en la fase de inversión y postinversión, es importante, y
Tal
ya
vez es
termino.
hora de ir terminando.
Ya termino. Sí, es importante ver la fase, digamos, una vez terminada la postinversión, es muy importante intervenir en la fase postproyecto, porque esta es una fase que consolida la sostenibilidad en la prestación de servicios. Es decir, de que este proceso debe continuar, no solamente cerrarnos hasta la inversión y postinversión, sino que a más largo tiempo, ¿no? Y para esto los factores que inciden básicamente es porque existe rotación de miembros del directorio de las EPSAs, existe la necesidad de actualizar estatutos y reglamentos, existe la necesidad de actualizar estructuras tarifarias, todavía hay que capacitar a los nuevos miembros en protocolos de inspección sanitarias, en capacitación en protección de fuentes, en control de calidad de agua para consumo humano y capacitación en administración y operación, porque la gente nueva que entra a administrar no siempre conoce todos estos temas. Entonces hay que capacitar en todo esto, hay que ver qué medidas se pueden aplicar y qué efectos hay que tener, digamos, qué medidas de efecto inmediato podemos implementar para que podamos solucionar los problemas que tengan puntuales. Son temas básicos para coadyuvar a la sostenibilidad de las inversiones del sector de agua potable y saneamiento. Gracias por su atención. Si hay algún comentario, alguna consulta, atento a poder responderles.
Thank you so much, Ivan. And there's a few questions for you in the chat. So please, if you can look in the chat, that would be very helpful. In the meantime, I will also look at some of the questions that we received for some of our speakers. I know that you've also been very active trying to answer some of those questions. I have a question here also by Tom Russell for Maria on whether you know how users have reduced water consumption. Is there something we can say about that?
Yes, of course. So so there are like two related
Sorry, and
questions.
also there's also another maybe question you can couple with that is also the estimated cost saving maybe per month.
Perfect. Yes, of course. So I'm going to talk also about a question they're referring to about spillover effects because everything's connected. So like basically when you are in a gated community, you have kind of a sense of very direct comparison. Like you can compare directly with your neighbors. So that kind of comparison and competitiveness that can arise or social kind of endorsement makes you try to makes you have a direct comparison. So what we saw is that specifically kind of the spillover effect is even if you didn't receive the message, the fact that some of your neighbors or one of your neighbors told you about receiving a message and that they were telling them that he was doing well, he was doing poorly, helps you to say, okay, I can also do better, or I want to be as good as my neighbor. He's doing well, and he's doing poorly. I have to be better than he is. So this kind of comparison, because you have a quite direct comparison, is we think the mechanism that is working for us for the people to reduce consumption. But as we said, we didn't delve into the mechanisms directly, but that's why we think is kind of happening. So by this comparison, or by receiving the message, we had a reduction that could be up to 10% of the cost of the bill, which kind of dollars will be kind of $2 to $3, $5 to $4. It may not sound as big as you may expect, but given the PPP here, the purchasing cost here in Colombia, in Bogota, this is significant, and we're talking about 10% of the consumption and 10% of the cost. That's what we're saying here right now. I don't know if that answered the question, but I just want to say, I just realized also that you may referring to the cost as a company, and let me just say here that we are not reducing costs right now, at least not in the short term. This is a cost-free experiment, but we're not reducing costs right now, but we are reducing long-term costs. Why? Because the more water reduction consumption we have, the more displaced will be the needs for a new water infrastructure in the future will be very, very expensive. So according to our estimates, we have the water and demand lines cross around 2040. So the more we can displace that into the future, the better it will be, because then we are going to displace very, very expensive costs.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so maybe now I could also just finally maybe ask also, Friso, have been a few questions also for you related especially on that really interesting, I think, dynamic between infrastructure, environmental conservation, and water issues, and also trying to be more positive and communicating that. How does that communicate? Jorge is asking, in what ways differently from how we communicate to other utilities and companies?
Yeah, thank you. And that was just one of the questions where I was really wondering what to answer, because I think what Maria Flores' presentation shows is a really a positive way of communication from a water utility. But and as beautiful as it is also, at least as far as I see and know, a rare example of how the water utility of Bogota really takes up on that message and responsibility to start interacting at that point. I'm not an expert on how all utilities communicate with their customers, so let me not try to overstep what I know, what I don't know. But I really believe that the example that Maria gave could be something that all utilities across the globe could adopt easily, or maybe not easily, but integrated in the responsibility we have also as a world of utilities and governmental organizations to make that impact. And it is drop by drop that we can make the change.
I think that's a beautiful close of our session before we turn over to Jan van Rompuy, who is the Director for Global Sustainability of WAVIN, to make some closing remarks. I just wanted to also mention a few of the organizers behind the seminar, which consists of the 3 sessions on purposeful communications and advocacy. So thanking Katie Hefner from RARE, Cristina Arango from Colombia, Eliana Harrigan from One Water, but also Ada Calderon from World Bank Peru, Friso Klappbeck, of course, from Raven, Maria Lucia from Acueducto, Ivan Albis, muchas gracias, from Senasba. Please also let us know if you would like to stay in touch. We would be happy to share some of our contact details as well in case you want to stay connected. Fabiana Bianchi also from CAF, thank you so much. Jan, please, you have the floor to provide some closing remarks to this session.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alida. And I echo your thanks to everybody involved. Trust, communication, engagement, advocacy, themes that are many times mentioned this week in Stockholm. And that is exactly what where we with this seminar aim to contribute to. And as mentioned, it's part of a seminar of 3 sessions. So there are 2 more sessions tomorrow. One on how to build trust for a sustainable water future, and one on cutting through complexity using communications. And in these sessions, we want to emphasize the field of behavioral science and the psychology of change. So the key takeaways for today, it's always hard to capture everything. I hope that everybody got out a lot of it. But what I noted down is the need for increased understanding of the psychology of behavior change. So understanding what are the factors that influence behavior change, and what are the strategies that we can use to encourage sustainable practices, as we have seen in the case studies. The second one, that the combination of the psychology, behavioral change, and really on-the-ground case studies can help us to give us insight in tools, strategies, and knowledge to generate positive behavior change that we can apply to initiatives all around the world. And yeah, the third thing is to really see concrete examples of how projects practice different innovative approaches that result into a more positive outcome that helps also to close the gaps in sustainable development goals where they exist. So these are the key takeaways. I think good to mention that we want to continue to align with the outcomes of the recent March UN Water Conference and the UN's Water Climate Agenda. And therefore, we also ask you to stay connected with us. And as Alida said, please leave your name in the chat if you want to continue to be connected to this discussion, because it will go on also after today. And also a final reminder, Eliana posted a Google form in the chat. So it would really appreciate if you can have a look and answer your questions there. So with that, I conclude this session. And once again, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks to the speakers. And let's continue the discussion tomorrow in the other sessions planned, but also in the other sessions. And again, leave your name in the chat so we can stay connected. Thank you.